Hello everyone, my name's Ellie. I must start by giving you a trigger warning because my story does involve some abuse. I won't go into a lot of detail, but I will mention some instances to show you what my mother-in-law put me through. I still regret the day I married Jake, my now ex-husband. Initially, I thought Jake was a good man from a respected family. His mother, Chrissy, worked at a charitable foundation, and his father, Xavier, was a successful businessman. They seemed like a great family, and I was happy to be a part of it. However, everything changed after I married Jake. Chrissy, my mother-in-law, became increasingly abusive towards me. It started with small things like hiding my belongings, glasses, phone, and purse, and laughing as I searched anxiously for them. She would also ask me to handle hot pots that would burn me, and once she even mixed shrimp juice into a dish knowing I was allergic, causing me to miss an important event. She would make me cook for hours only to throw everything on the floor. Whenever confronted, she denied any wrongdoing or claimed it was accidental. After enduring months of this mistreatment, I finally confronted Chrissy and sought help from Jake. "You need to tell me what your problem is, Chrissy," I pleaded. "I'm tired of your behavior. I know you've been intentionally trying to hurt and embarrass me." Chrissy responded defensively. "What are you talking about, Ellie? How could you accuse me of something like that? Are you jealous of me or something?" Frustrated, I retorted, "Why would I be jealous of you? You're a psycho who enjoys hurting me for no reason." Jake, instead of supporting me, brushed off my concerns. "Ellie, don't be so dramatic. My mother is a respected lady. She works at a charitable foundation. She would never do anything to hurt you." Feeling betrayed by Jake's indifference to my suffering, I realized Chrissy had manipulated him too, hiding her actions and pretending innocence. It was shocking that he blamed me for accusing his mother despite knowing about her deliberate actions against me. I was horrified to hear what he said. "Jake, you need to do something about your mom. What she's been doing to me is borderline abusive. You've seen how she intentionally makes food with ingredients I'm allergic to, and she doesn't even tell me." "You're being ridiculous, Ellie," Jake replied firmly. "Mom would never do something like that. It's all in your head. She's been telling me you're jealous of her. I can see what's happening." "What the hell, Jake? You know your mother has been tampering with my food, adding allergens to it." "You know more than that," I exclaimed, feeling bewildered by his defense of her. "Yet you're taking her side?" I couldn't comprehend why Jake, who had always loved and cared for me, was now dismissing my concerns about his mother. It felt like a sudden betrayal. I stared at him in disbelief, trying to make sense of his change in attitude. That's when his mother interjected. "Jake, your wife is crossing all limits," she declared coldly. "If she continues this behavior, we may have to kick her out. I always knew she was unworthy of our family, and now she's proving it. If you want to support your wife, you can leave as well. That will help us decide better what to do with your inheritance." "And Mom, Ellie is just upset right now. I don't support her at all," Jake quickly responded, trying to appease his mother. "I promise she'll behave herself. If not, you can kick her out. I won't mind. I always knew you were the reasonable one, Mom. Thank God you can see past this." I was stunned. Jake was blatantly choosing his mother's side, denying my experiences and blaming me for the tension. It became clear to me why he was acting this way. You see, Jake and I were living with his parents because that's what they wanted. He worked for his father's company and was financially dependent on his dad. He hoped to inherit his father's assets, and upsetting his mother could jeopardize that. It was evident that my husband was more concerned about securing his future inheritance than protecting me. "What the hell is wrong with you, Ellie? Are you trying to get us kicked out or something?" Jake snapped at me later when we were alone. "Seriously, Jake, that's all you have to say after I told you about your mom's abuse? What kind of husband are you?" I cried out in frustration. "The kind that knows how to secure his future," Jake replied coldly. "You're insane, Ellie. You can't just expect me to accuse my mom of such things and drag me into your problems. If she gets mad at me, do you think she'll let Dad give me my inheritance?" "Is your inheritance more important than your wife, Jake?" I asked, tears welling up in my eyes. "We don't need anything. Let's leave and buy our own house. It may be smaller, but it will be ours, and no one can abuse me there," I pleaded. "Don't be ridiculous, Ellie. We could never afford a house like this." "I'm not going anywhere. You'll put up with my mom and stop complaining," Jake asserted firmly. "If you don't, I'm sure my mom will kick you out. Don't come crying to me because I won't help you." And at that moment, I realized the truth. When I realized my marriage was over, Jake betrayed me in the worst possible way. He wasn't the man I thought he was. Feeling helpless, I watched as Chrissy escalated her abusive tactics, now assured Jake wouldn't intervene. I felt lost, wanting to flee and leave it all behind. But I refused to let Chrissy get away with her cruelty. I devised a plan to expose her. Accessing the house's security footage covertly, I compiled undeniable evidence of Chrissy's abuse against me into a video. I bided my time, waiting for Chrissy's upcoming birthday celebration, where Xavier and guests would be present. That day became my deadline, my moment to confront her. On Chrissy's birthday, she played the gracious hostess, behaving impeccably, likely because of the guests. I played along, biding my time until after the cake was cut. Stating before everyone, I made a calm announcement. "Thank you all for joining us to celebrate my dear mother-in-law, Chrissy," I began. "I'm sure many of you know what a sweet and caring woman she appears to be. Today, on her birthday, I thought it fitting to share a glimpse of the real Chrissy." Without further ado, I directed everyone's attention to a screen where I had prepared a video compilation. "Please enjoy this video I've put together to honor our dear birthday girl," I said, as I played the footage. Prepared for any backlash, I had friends on standby, ready to support me if needed. After enduring years of Chrissy's abuse, I had reached my breaking point. I no longer cared about her or Jake. I was done. As the video played, the room fell silent. Guests watched in horror and disbelief as the truth about Chrissy unfolded before their eyes. Chrissy and Jake stood in stunned silence, while Xavier's expression betrayed deep reflection. In that moment, I knew I had taken a stand against my monstrous mother-in-law, exposing her deceit to everyone present. I didn't blame Jake. He had been away for days and unaware of what had been happening. When the video ended, it was my father-in-law, Xavier, who broke the silence. "What the hell did I just watch, Chrissy?" he demanded. "It's not what it looks like, Xavier. These videos are fabricated, taken out of context," Chrissy hurriedly replied. Xavier's voice remained firm. "Oh really, Chrissy? They don't look fabricated to me. Are you suggesting my daughter-in-law went to the lengths of doctoring videos just to humiliate you?" "Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, Xavier," Chrissy insisted. "Ellie is doing this out of malice. I don't know how she managed to manipulate those videos. I would never do something like this." Chrissy's casual lies infuriated me. She was attempting to convince everyone that a year of abuse documented in my video was entirely fabricated. I couldn't believe she might still deceive people after exposing her antics. I calmly responded, "So now you want to blame me for tarnishing your image, Chrissy? Let's settle this then. Let's call the police and let them decide if these videos are fabricated." "Nonsense, Ellie. The police won't entertain baseless accusations from a liar like you," Chrissy retorted confidently. "Are you sure about that, Chrissy?" I challenged. "You were just claiming ignorance of your illegal actions. Let's call the cops and find out." Chrissy looked panicked at the prospect. She hadn't anticipated being confronted like this. Meanwhile, I noticed some of Chrissy's friends, colleagues from the charitable foundation where she worked, giving her disapproving looks while typing on their phones. They seemed to be reporting what they witnessed at the party. Chrissy continued to plead her innocence to Xavier. "Xavier, do you hear her? She's threatening to involve the police. Ellie is trying to get me into trouble. She's delusional." Xavier's expression hardened. "Jake, care to explain what you were doing while your wife was being abused under my roof?" "Dad, it's not as bad as it looks," Jake interjected nervously. "Mom is a caring mother-in-law." "Seriously, Jake? Is this how a caring mother-in-law behaves?" Xavier challenged. "Are you out of your mind? Ellie showed you proof, and you still defend your mother." Realizing the gravity of the situation, Xavier addressed everyone present. "Wait a minute. Ellie told Jake about the abuse, and he did nothing." The room fell silent as the realization sank in. No one had expected Jake to know the truth and fail to protect his wife. It became evident that Jake's priorities were tied more to his inheritance and living in a luxurious mansion than standing up for his wife. Zaire, a man of morals and ethics, was visibly furious at his son's betrayal. "I didn't marry Jake for his father's fortune or to live in a grand mansion. I married him out of love," I declared, my voice steady with resolve. "But it's clear that Jake has different priorities." Xavier stepped forward, his expression reflecting disappointment and anger. It was clear he wouldn't tolerate Chrissy's behavior any longer. When I told Xavier that I had informed Jake about the abuse, he refused to believe me. Jake had always dismissed my concerns, accusing me of overreacting and defending Chrissy. He insisted he couldn't risk upsetting her because it might jeopardize our stay in the house. "Why didn't you come to me sooner, Ellie?" Xavier asked, his voice heavy with regret. "I needed to gather proof," I explained. "I knew no one would believe me without it." "We all believe you, Ellie. I'm so sorry this happened to you," Xavier sighed. "I'm sorry I failed to raise my son right. As for Chrissy, you can call the cops on her. I won't interfere." "How could you say that, Xavier? You would let her call the cops on her own wife?" Chrissy protested. "My life will be ruined?" "Xavier, our reputation will be ruined," Jake added urgently. "You can't support this." "Shut your mouths." Xavier's voice thundered. "After what you've done, you have no right to tell me how to act. And don't call me family. Abusers and enablers can never be my family. As for my reputation, it will remain intact. I will divorce Chrissy and disinherit Jake as soon as possible. I want no ties with monsters like you two." Chrissy and Jake were stunned by Xavier's decisive words. They had assumed they could spin the situation to make me look like the villain, but the crowd's cheers made it clear that no one believed them. Chrissy's friends had already left, pledging their support to me and promising to hold Chrissy accountable in their own way. As Chrissy and Jake pleaded with Xavier, insisting he reconsider, he remained resolute. "Ellie's words are backed by proof. She didn't just tell me the truth, she showed it to me. Unlike my spineless son here, I intend to do what's right by Ellie." "Dad, I'm sorry," Jake finally admitted. "I should have listened to Ellie. Believe me, Dad, I had no idea Mom was capable of." "I showed you proof once, Jake," I interrupted, my voice steady with resolve. "But you chose to do nothing. You didn't want to risk your inheritance." Xavier's decision was final, and Chrissy and Jake realized they couldn't change his mind. Their attempts to manipulate the situation had failed, and now they faced the consequences of their actions. "I don't even know what I ever saw in you. It's ironic that your father cares more about me than you," I remarked bitterly. "If you hadn't supported me today, Xavier, I don't know what I would have done," I continued, feeling grateful for Xavier's backing. "I support you wholeheartedly, Ellie. My foolish son doesn't deserve you, and he certainly doesn't deserve the inheritance he covets so badly," Xavier asserted firmly. "It's only right that I disinherit him." "Dad, no, you can't do this to me," Jake pleaded desperately. "I'm your son." "Don't call me Dad, Jake. I'm done being an ATM to two useless people who contribute nothing but misery to this world," Xavier retorted. "Since you become as greedy and deceitful as your mother, you can leave with her after our divorce. There will be no home for you here anymore." "You're not serious about this, Xavier," Chrissy interjected, her voice trembling. "You're just saying this to hurt me. We've been together for almost 3 decades. "Yes, we have been together that long," Xavier acknowledged coldly. "But I never imagined my own wife could be so vile and monstrous. After today, I want nothing to do with you." Chrissy stood frozen, stunned into silence, while Jake sobbed and begged Xavier for forgiveness. It struck me profoundly how today's events laid bare their true priorities. They care only for wealth and reputation, not for the person they had abused for a year. I felt disgusted by the man I once called my husband. He was more upset about losing his inheritance than realizing the extent of my suffering. Chrissy began crying and pleading with Xavier, not to me, but to him. "Xavier, please, I know I made a mistake. It won't happen again. Please don't take such a drastic step without thinking." "Dad, Mom is right. We messed up, but we'll make it right," Jake added, his voice choked with tears. "We're ashamed of ourselves. This will be a wake-up call for me. Please forgive us." "You have some nerve asking for forgiveness," Xavier responded bitterly. "You haven't even apologized to Ellie, the main victim here. You're apologizing to me because I have the power to leave you bankrupt and homeless. Not once have you shown remorse or apologized to her for your despicable actions." Xavier's words echoed my own feelings of betrayal and neglect. He saw through their insincerity, recognizing their desperation to avoid losing everything they had. As soon as Xavier pointed out their hypocrisy, Chrissy and Jake began bombarding me with apologies. Their gestures felt so fake and desperate that I recoiled, feeling as though their mere touch would pollute me further. I wanted those monsters nowhere near me anymore. "Don't bother with your fake apologies anymore. I know you're only sorry because you got caught and are facing consequences," I stated firmly. "I'm not the doormat who entered this family a year ago. I see through your facades." Ellie, please, Chrissy pleaded, her voice quivering. I should have protected you. I'm so sorry I didn't. We love each other. We can move past this. We're family. Yes, we're family, I responded with bitter irony. I'm sorry, Chrissy, but I can't accept your apology. Your idea of a perfect family involves abusing your daughter-in-law. That's not something I'm willing to overlook. I was such a bad mother-in-law, Chrissy continued, attempting to salvage the situation. I promise I'll get help. I'll change. Please forgive us. Let's go back to being a family. I couldn't help but laugh. You must be delusional if you think I consider you family. You're nothing but leeches. Your apologies mean nothing. You're only here because your future is at stake. Well, I don't forgive you. Don't do this, Ellie, Jake pleaded desperately. I did what I did to protect us. I love you. You let your mom torture me because you wanted to secure our future. I shot back, my voice steady with resolve. I told you countless times we don't need your parents' money. I wanted us to leave, to get away from your evil mother, but greed kept you here, overlooking everything she did. I'm divorcing you, Jake, I declared firmly. That's final, and I'll be going after half of your assets. You'll pay for enabling your mother. Jake and Chrissy were stunned into silence, their pleading and apologies falling on deaf ears. They continued crying, but I was done listening. I called my friends, who swiftly gathered my belongings and drove me away from that toxic household. Jake tried to intervene, but one stern word from Xavier shut him down. Chrissy's pleas were equally ignored. I didn't need to involve the police with the video evidence. Xavier's actions spoke volumes. He kicked them out of the house, leaving them to beg at my friend's doorstep for shelter. Xavier had an ironclad prenup, ensuring Chrissy received nothing. Her friends at the charitable foundation exposed her actions, resulting in her dismissal. Jake lost his job at his father's company, along with any hope of a substantial inheritance. Chrissy had the audacity to appeal to me for help, claiming we were family. I promptly kicked them out and threatened a restraining order if they ever contacted me again. In the months that followed, I settled into my own place, having rented a small flat. The divorce was finalized smoothly, with Jake relinquishing assets he had once believed secure. He worked two jobs now, supporting a mother who refused to work. Once, Jake called me to complain about his circumstances, hinting he wanted to come back. I laughed and hung up, relishing the irony that he now faced the consequences of his actions. It was a long road to vengeance, but I no longer needed to actively pursue it. I was living well, and so was Xavier. As for Jake and Chrissy, they were reaping what they had sown, a heavy dose of karma for their years of abuse and manipulation.